right, if you are seeking to attend the presentation on the HL7 International FHIR community process, you're in the right place. Quick introduction, I'm Reuben Daniels. My role is as Deputy FHIR Product Director at HL7 International. Few of my hats down under background, not too important. I might just touch on the fact that I am a member of the HL7 FHIR Community Process Coordination Committee, and it is on their behalf that I'm delivering this presentation today. So more about them a bit later. So what are we talking about today? We'll start off with what the problem statement for the FCP is. Then I'll tell you what the FCP actually is. We'll go through the FCP requirements, touch on registries and icons, the governance of the FCP, and finally the benefits. I have a surprise announcement for you at the end as well, so if you don't mind staying, we'll cover that, and of course Q&A as well. Right, so what's the problem statement for the FCP? As all of you I'm sure will know, FHIR is a completely open and unencumbered standard, allowing any individual organization to freely develop and publish open public FHIR specifications, and indeed we've seen hundreds if not thousands of FHIR implementation guides, not just from HL7 but from affiliates and other organizations as well. However, a few years ago Graham recognized that unless we had a process or framework to ensure that we had a consistent foundation for these specifications, they were very likely to duplicate effort and not follow best practices. So some examples of that sort of thing would obviously be defining extensions or profiles or terminology artifacts where there are existing and fit-for-purpose ones which already exist and should be reused, adopting ill-defined versioning schemes and policies, or not making it easy for the community to contribute or raise concerns with the specifications. So in summary, the problem statement is without that lack of alignment, this will contribute to fragmentation, non-interoperable FHIR-based solutions, and market confusion. So that being the problem, what we hope is that the FHIR community process presents a solution or approach to addressing that problem. The process aims to address the problem by establishing that consistent foundation for participants to produce FHIR specifications. And it does that by providing a set of requirements, which we refer to as the FCP requirements, which will guide, we hope will guide the FHIR community to develop specifications which do follow the best practices, will have better acceptance and broader implemented within the broader implementer community, and lead to better interoperability. I want to touch on just why best practice matters. By following best practices, there will be confidence that the produced FHIR specifications will minimize incompatibilities. The projects which produce these specifications will attract more contributors. We can support a wider set of viewpoints and implementation experience. The project won't suddenly be withdrawn or forked to become a private specification, and that the open source commitment is in fact meaningful. And obviously, by following best practices, there'll be reduced time spent to rework and then later on adopt the best practices. So in terms of how it works with those requirements, we target FCP participants, which are the parties which do publish or seek to publish open FHIR specifications, projects, which are the projects which are set up to develop those specifications, and the FCP specifications themselves. So there are requirements for each of those groups, and I will just summarize some of those in the next few slides. So first of all, for FCP participants, and again, these could be individuals, organizations, HL7 affiliates, what have you, the requirements for them are first and foremost that they publish an FCP compliance policy. This is a document which will describe how the participants' projects and FHIR specifications will meet the FCP requirements which we've published for projects and specifications. We also require participants to notify HL7 of all their new FCP projects and FCP specifications, in particular those not covered by the FCP compliance policy. And we also require them to submit projects and specifications not covered by their compliance policies for assessment by HL7 against the corresponding FCP requirements. So in short, if you would like to be a participant, you can register to become one. There's no cost at the moment. And you publish a compliance policy, which is a kind of blanket statement of how your projects and specifications align with the FCP. And from then on, for all your projects and specifications which do align, you can declare them, and that's great. Where they don't align or where there are necessary changes or deviations from your compliance policy, you simply submit it for assessment, and it will be thus registered and recognized as an FCP project or specification. Moving on to projects, the key thing for projects is product level documentation. So under the FCP, we'd like to know what the project's leadership is, all the IP and licensing constraints and requirements of the projects and its outputs, the rules for community participation, the project's engagement and collaboration forums, funding arrangements, actual or perceived conflicts of interest amongst the participating entities, and the project's development cycle. And for the specifications themselves, firstly, we require conformance to the basic rules of the HL7 FHIR Implementation Guide publishing requirements. That's a requirement that only applies if your specification is a FHIR IG. We require registration in the appropriate FHIR registries, and again, documentation covering the specification level, license and encumbrances, methods for raising issues, security, safety, and privacy issues, as well as quality and versioning. And we do also have a requirement that under certain conditions, specifications are submitted for reassessment. So things, for example, like if the participants' FCP compliance policy changes, we might need to reassess, or indeed if the FCP requirements themselves change, we might request a reassessment. The FCP requirements have now been published. They can be found at this permalink, and I'm sure these slides are available through Hoover, so no need to jot that down. They were agreed by the governing committee, which I'll touch on in a few slides, and is now available for anyone to have a look at. And I'll be here all week. If anyone has any questions on those requirements, please come and see me. Happy to discuss them. I spoke about registries earlier on. There are FCP registries and icons as well. So approved FCP participants, projects, and specifications will be added to HL7 maintained FCP registries. And FCP participants are also authorized to use the associated FCP icons. We have, so this is the general FCP icon. We've got specific ones for FCP participants, projects, and specifications, which approved FCP participants can use on their websites or in their specification publications themselves. Now, governance, my favorite word. The FCP is well governed, I'm very pleased to say, and it's governed under HL7 by the HL7 FHIR Community Process Coordination Committee, or the FCPCC, on behalf of HL7 International. Currently, the FCPCC has 5 members. Graham Grieve, the creator of FHIR, chairs the committee. Dan Reuben, who's here with us today, is a member, as is Diego Kaminka, the Deputy Chief Standards Implementation Officer. We have membership from Chris Carr, who is the IG International Secretary, and myself, and we'll be adding more from the groups of FCP participants in future as well. In terms of our responsibilities, chiefly, we define and maintain the FCP requirements. We assess and approve applications for new FCP participants, projects, and specifications. We manage the FCP registries. We authorize local FCP coordination committees to undertake some of the assessment tasks of the FCPCC. We have so far only authorized one, and that's the Australian FHIR Coordination Committee, under specific conditions that they approve participants, projects, and specifications within the Australian realm. And we monitor the ongoing success of the process and ensure that it evolves to meet changing needs. I want to, as I mentioned, Chris Carr is a member from IG, and I want to emphasize the fact that the FCPCC is absolutely open to non-HL7 members as well. So it's not an HL7 only membership committee. Right, to summarize the benefits of the FCP, I've separated these into 3 categories. First of all, for the participants themselves, the benefits are, I think, quite clear. Your specifications and projects will have increased acceptance by the community. They'll be more easy to discover, and they will attract more participation and adoption. From implementers and adopters of specifications, it'll be easier to discover specifications. They'll have increased confidence of quality and clarity on how to contact the specification maintainers, as well as potentially contributing to those specifications if they choose to. And HL7 and the broader FHIR community we'll hopefully see better quality FHIR specifications overall, less duplicated effort, increased reuse, coordinated adoption of the standard outside of HL7, and high likelihood of interoperable solutions, and the reason we're all here, better health outcomes. Now, onto that announcement. The FCPCC has recently, and I mean literally like this morning, published an FCP dedicated website. And we've also got a very easy to remember URL for that. It's hl7.me/FCP. That is the FCP website where all information on the FCP will be available. And hopefully, if Google lets me go to the, great, I can't see the tabs on this screen. Anyway, I'll let you find go to the link and see for yourself. Oh, great, and now this doesn't come back. Have a look. Always happy to take feedback as well as information. The key thing you'll find on that website as well are the FCP registries, where we'll be adding participants, projects, and specifications as they become approved. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions and provide some answers if I know. Danielle.
Hello. Yay. So I have a question relating to the expectation for affiliates and organisations and so forth to publish an FCP compliance policy. Mm-hmm. What are the timeframes around that are expected?
By when they need to do that?
Yes.
So the way we see it is, in order to become a participant, you need to publish that policy. It's a requirement.
So I guess what I'm saying is, so I'm from Australia, and we are already approved. So, but I assume, I'm not aware that we've published an FCP compliance policy, or rather a document there. So when do we need to have that in place, I guess, to maintain our approval?
So the way that would work is the affiliate will need to apply to become a participant and provide that policy. Right now, it's a requirement which has not been met yet. However, the AFCC is approved as an authorizing committee, which is separate to being an FCP participant.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned requirements for participants to submit non-FCP covered specifications to HL7 for review.
Mm-hmm. Well, they'd submit it if they'd like to become FCP approved.
Okay, so there's no expectation that anything other than...
Yeah, it's only for those organizations or individuals who seek FCP approval status. And we hope most people would desire to do that, that they would submit that. There's no mandate that they do that. We really hope that they would, because for all those benefits I summarized earlier on. And it's particularly relevant to open specifications. I think we acknowledge that there will absolutely be a whole lot of proprietary or private FHIR specifications. That's all great. Perhaps the benefits aren't as easily realized for those if they're in a very closed user group or private or what have you. But it's for open ones, we really do hope that the FCP is something that those specification authors would seek. Cooper.
Yeah, so you mentioned best practices. Are those best practices primarily focused on like process and rather than technical? Like early on you mentioned like terminology publishing, but are there going to be additional technical best practices?
There are a couple of technical ones, primarily around those basic requirements for FHIR IGs published by HL7. We also have a requirement around producing a QA report without any errors for the artifacts within the FHIR specification. Not that you would be using the IG publisher necessarily, but if you have FHIR artifacts like value sets or structure definitions, what have you, we'd be seeking a QA report with no errors in it. There are also some technical requirements around versioning and that sort of thing. So there's technical stuff in the specification area, and on the project area, it's around things like project development, lifecycle, leadership, participation, and so forth.
Have you considered, or has there been consideration for additional technical requirements to kind of mitigate fragmentation? So I know we see like you know, in the space of scheduling, some use REST, some use messaging, some use subscriptions, and like there's that sort of variance. So like at least doing market research for your IG to see what else has been done and building on that.
Look, I absolutely anticipate that things will go that way. We didn't want to become overly prescriptive right from the beginning. These were a lot of the common sense things, but I suppose as the FCP sees more uptake in the community and the community starts demanding a bit more of their FHIR specifications, we'll certainly consider adding additional requirements. Yes.
So I have a lot of questions. I'm
No.
really excited about this.
No, go
I'll
ahead.
ask maybe my first question, which is, can we or should we anticipate there might be any more kind of direct benefits for folks that pursue this process from like a tooling or an exposure perspective? So beyond like being able to say, hey, I'm listed on this website, are there other benefits for pursuing this in terms of like tools that help us engage our community and help coordinate up to the mothership for what we're finding?
Look, I think so. One of the things that's already in train is a feature being added to the IG Publisher tooling to automatically add that FCP icon to your IG. More broadly, I think the hope, and certainly the hope I have in Australia, is that FCP alignment or approval is going to become something that'll go into procurement documentation. And just to give buyers of solutions or procurers of specifications that much more confidence and assurance that the specifications of products that they're investing in meet a bar that the community endorses. So yeah, I think we'll see more of that. I certainly hope so.
I have a follow-up question, but I don't.
You can ask another one on that.
No, I can always ask Reuben.
A question around existing popular IGs, CPG, structured data capture, those sorts. Are those projects going to become part of this process, or is this something separate?
So right now, it's very unlikely that HL7 international FHIR specifications are going to be explicitly FCP approved, because HL7 far and away exceeds the requirements of FCP specification. It's a much higher bar, and the community kind of knows that. What we're trying to do is to make sure that everything outside standards development organizations like HL7 meet a minimum bar. And I'm not familiar with all of the ones you've just mentioned. I know SDC is an HL7 one, but we are certainly happy to talk to any participant producing FHIR specifications outside the SDOs about becoming a participant. And I think so far the feedback we've received is that most are quite keen to do that. We've been contacted by partners of the Gravity Accelerator project who would like to potentially pursue becoming an FCP participant as well. And I think we will see more of that. The requirements aren't overly onerous, and a lot of it makes sense. Thanks. Quick one, Sheridan?
Probably not going to be quick, so.
Okay.
So kind of related to your question about benefits, has there been consideration, either past or future, of communicating with regulatory agencies, not just for procurement, but for regulation, that they might consider only regulating either HL7 IGs or things that have the ACP stamp?
There's not any discussion I'm aware of, but I think it's a great idea.
Cool. Time for one more.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Okay, so I'm part of, and I am a rep for an affiliate that doesn't have a lot of capacity to be able to kind of follow similar processes in FHIR, resource them, take a specification in my country through the ballot. But as an affiliate, we want to make sure that we are kind of supporting and saying, hey, we have engaged in your implementation guide. It's kind of blessed from our perspective, even if we can't help facilitate you through the process. Is there anything in the requirements or the practices that distinctly call out like how you claim your relationship to your affiliate, or like, are you sponsored by your affiliate? Like, how can I convince my affiliate that it's okay if I put my implementation guide through this process and that I'm not going against their governance structure?
Good question. So At the Dallas Working Group meeting in May, Graham, I should say, presented this work to the International Council, and I think it was pretty warmly received. There weren't any concerns. The only link we have, well, a couple of links with affiliates in relation to all of this is, first of all, affiliates are absolutely encouraged to become FCP participants in their own right. And further to that, affiliates are also encouraged to consider setting up local authorizing committees to help do the task of the FCPCC within their realm. So I think the message from affiliates to their members is, we're happy for you to, well, we encourage you, I hope they'd think, to follow this process, and that they won't stand in the way of going either directly to the FCPCC or in fact establishing their own local authorizing committees with the support of the FCPCC. I think we're all in it for the same outcomes, and and from there on, I think it just comes down to the affiliate and how they want to participate. All right, I think, Isaac.
If there's time. So related to that, like there's a really wide spectrum of, even FHIR specification, review, community engagement, and publication processes globally.
Yep.
Heck, even domestically.
Yep.
And I know that like you, Danielle, like Australia, I mean, like with your guys' work on AU Core, really did it. Made serious use of all of like the HL7 international tools as part of that ballot, and better than probably anybody I've ever seen. I mean,
Checks in the mail, Isaac.
Excellent, perfect. No, and whereas like if you're a small affiliate or if you aren't as resourced, perhaps as well, then like maybe everybody's just emailing spreadsheets, right? In terms of feedback and. Maybe you're publishing in a PDF or whatever. Can you speak to the overhead that following those more transparent, better documented, more accessible to a wider community of implementers? What was the overhead of actually initiating those HL7 processes from that affiliate or community organization? Like, what it cost you guys, and how realistic is that for some other smaller affiliate or organization?
I may defer to you, and I'll come in at the end, Danielle.
Sure. So the initial cost was pretty high to start that up. So I guess around membership. So you one of the things you have to have if you're going to do balloting, and you will anyway, because if you're using spreadsheets, you've got your own process and who was allowed to vote. Do you do that by membership, similar to HL7 International, but it's your own membership? And you have to keep track of that because you can't use HL7 International's tooling for that. So working through that, keeping a track of our membership, in which we have worked out that process with them, which was great. We need to manage our own ballot sign-up pools and then provide that list, basically, to them. Now, that went spectacularly wrong the first time, and a whole bunch of people were totally locked out of voting. That we had a trial run process, thankfully, so it wasn't like a real ballot. It was a ballot for comment. But we've sort of solved that now on how that happened. We've got some new processes. But so that was just getting that part was quite a bit of investment from our board internally, because we don't have a lot of staff. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 staff. The rest are just board members who are volunteers. And, at the accelerator, we put in time and investment because that suits us as well. In terms then of using this is we had to go through training to work out how to use that, and also when you load your specification and managing that, because that runs the tooling on which pages and which artifacts and which versions can be balloted, and managing that at the affiliate level and once you load it the first time, which is automatic, that's all very nice. But from then on, you've got to manually kind of maintain that. So there is an overhead there. Once you've got that set up and you've opened your ballot, though, there is no administration. The tooling works quite fine. The other part then, I guess, is at close of that, where we, again, can't make use of the tooling that relies on HL7 international membership about things like withdrawing negative votes. So you'll need your own process and tooling to do that, whether that's just emailing people. It's worth it, though. It is overall easier than trying to deal with spreadsheets, depending on how many people you expect to be doing ballot comments. So for us in this one, I think it was like 75 people signed up to provide ballot comments, and to handle that many spreadsheets would have been just awful, as opposed to being able to use the tooling of affirmative or negative or comment or that kind of thing. So on balance, I think it actually saved us time. There's just a lot more upfront.
Was that also true for the users? Like, so the people who were doing it for the first time, did they also have to do overhead of like learning how to use the tool? Was that part of your consideration?
It is. We also then spent some investment on doing like little webinars and little like 2-minute of I want to create an issue and just creating those and making sure we were available to talk through what that does. But again, once that's there, personally, I hate trying to fill out Excel spreadsheets for review feedback, and I find Jira, again, our audience should be mostly, hopefully, technical people. So that was easier for them. We also had a number of people who I think are probably still confused, which are like our peak bodies. We've got like our Council for Allergies in Australia who really gave it a good go and put in comments and everything, but I think that was a little bit of a struggle for them. But developers, it was no issue. It was really more explaining what does a negative vote really do.
I want to come, sorry.
Just quick, there's also some set of users that already know that international processes too.
Yeah,
I'm a user here.
I wanted to, I guess, come back to your question, Isaac, and looking more broadly than affiliates, which are mini SDOs, if you will. The requirements of the FCP for participants are way lower than an SDO's. There is overhead, but I'd suggest that the overhead is probably 1 to 5% of actually creating the FHIR spec in and of itself. If you're doing a FHIR spec, you're probably doing structure definitions, profiles, value sets, a bit of publication. All of that stuff is so much more than the few mandatory requirements to be an FCP specification. You need a versioning scheme. Your artifacts need to meet a certain bar under the IG Publishers QA report. So I don't think there's a bit of overhead. It's not, it's significant, but it's not major overhead. And in terms of the benefits, I think absolutely worthwhile. I think I'm out of time. So did you have a question, Sharon?
No, I think we're gonna have lunch with you guys.
Yeah, no, sure. I'm going to wrap it up and say we welcome FCP participants, and we also encourage all of you to spread the word about the FCP. Please share that URL, very easy to remember, hl7.me/FCP. That's Graham's email address, and he's dying to hear from any potential FCP participants. You can reach me at DevDays all week. That's my email address, and that's the link to the FCPCC committee if you'd like to get in touch on chat.fhir.org. And with that, I thank you all very, very much.